The passing of the 21st Century Cures Act in 2016 demonstrated the FDA's growing acceptance for use of real-world data to generate real-world evidence in support of regulatory submissions for pharmaceutical products and medical devices. In 2021, a new indication for prevention of rejection and death in lung transplant was granted to Astara Pharma for Prograf based on real-world evidence. This year in 2022, the FDA's approval for Novartis product, Rejoice, represents an unprecedented case where the approval was based on a retrospective study of 57 patients before a phase 2 or phase 3 trial.
We recently had the opportunity to work with a pharmaceutical client to support the development of regulatory submissions to the FDA for label expansion of their products to a new indication using real-world data rather than implementing a randomized clinical trial. As consultants, we served as strategic and scientific partners for identifying appropriate fit-for-purpose data sources, for relevancy and completeness of information, and for identifying the most rigorous analytical approach for the FDA's acceptance of the data choice and data analytics. By coordinating, harmonizing, and consolidating the varying insights from the client's medical, clinical, regulatory, and real-world evidence teams, we developed a feasibility proposal, scientifically rigorous in the FDA's eyes and strategically relevant for manufacturers, which was submitted to the FDA for its favorable support and agreement on the study design and analytic approach. The aim of the proposed study is to implement causal inference analysis to emulate a target trial. We believe that causal inference is the appropriate methodology for this study, even more appropriate than a randomized clinical trial, because the client's product is already on the market and has been routinely used off-label in the therapeutic area for which the client seeks the new indication. Perhaps more importantly, existing trials have not been able to include a true placebo arm for comparison, due to mode of administration making it near impossible to blind treatment. Causal inference uses real-world data to predict certain features of the world as if the world had been different. In the case of the proposed study, we want to ask what the impact on safety and effectiveness endpoints would be if patients in the real world took the client's treatment instead of the treatment they were taking. To achieve this, first, a graphical causal model representing risk factors, treatments, outcomes, and relationships between these variables is designed. Next, a causal model structure based on expert opinion is developed. Then, the model is fit to real-world data. Finally, patient-level simulation and daily cycling are modeled such that all post-baseline confounders and outcomes under different interventions are accounted for. Outcomes are then compared between observed data and simulated interventions, from which results can be interpreted as having causal effects. If approved by the FDA, this exciting work will be one of the first approvals based on real-world evidence and will be the very first implementing causal inference methodologies.
More than ever before, we are seeing growing acceptance and favorable changes for real-world evidence. Real-world evidence studies should be designed and conducted such that they can stand up against the rigor of regulatory review. In the near term, it is our hope that regulatory bodies around the world appreciate the scientifically rigorous approaches applied to real-world data, such as causal inference models.